The signal from the darkness. Commander Ilara Vega stood at the viewport of Outpost Sentinel, watching the stars. The small monitoring station orbited at the edge of human space, far from Earth, but even farther from the glittering core worlds of the Galactic Concord. Most species considered this posting a punishment. Isolated, boring, dangerous. Humans requested it. Another quiet shift, Commander. Lieutenant Nash asked, sliding a steaming cup of coffee across the console. Ilara took the cup without looking away from the stars. Quiet is good, Lieutenant. The day things get exciting out here is the day we're in trouble. Nash nodded, though his expression betrayed his youth. 26 standard years old and fresh from Earth's Space Academy, he still craved action. He hadn't yet learned that in space, excitement usually meant death. Besides, Ilara added, the Concord representatives would have a collective seizure if they knew we actually enjoyed frontier duty. They already think we're unstable. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 17 spacefaring species that had been exploring the stars for millennia before humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. Humans were the newest members, reluctantly admitted just 15 years ago, and still viewed with suspicion. Earth was classified as a death world by Concord standards. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, diverse and often lethal flora and fauna, and home to an apex predator species that had evolved to survive it all. Humans were regarded as unpredictable, aggressive, and dangerous. Most Concord species found the very idea of Earth terrifying. Commander, the urgent voice of Ensign Park cut through Ilara's thoughts. We're receiving a signal, long range, coming from New Haven Colony. Ilara frowned, moving quickly to Park Station. New Haven shouldn't be broadcasting. They're under communications restriction during the settlement phase. It's not a standard transmission, Park said, fingers moving across her console. It's an emergency beacon, military frequency. The blood in Ilara's veins turned cold. New Haven was one of humanity's newest colonies, established under the strict quotas allowed by the Concord. The settlement had barely begun construction. Play it, she ordered. The signal was fragmented, distorted by distance and interference. Under attack, unknown vessels, heavy casualties, requesting immediate. Then nothing but static. Signal terminated at source, Park reported quietly. Nash's excitement had vanished, replaced by the pallor of genuine fear. Could it be pirates? Mercenaries? Triangulate the signal, Ilara ordered, and send a message to Earth Command, highest priority. Commander, Lieutenant Keller, the communications officer, spoke up. Concord Protocol requires that we report this first to the Regional Oversight Committee. Direct communication with Earth military is prohibited without prior. I'm aware of the protocols, Lieutenant. Ilara cut him off. Send the message. Authorization Vega 047 Epsilon. Keller hesitated only briefly before nodding. Yes, Commander. Commander Vega, came a smooth, modulated voice from the doorway. I couldn't help but overhear. You appear to be violating Concord communication protocols. Ambassador Thrix, the Concord liaison assigned to Outpost Sentinel, glided into the command center. The lengthy diplomat's iridescent scales shimmered under the station lights as he moved with unsettling grace. Like all his species, he had evolved on a low-gravity world with minimal environmental hazards, the opposite of Earth in every way. Ambassador, Ilara acknowledged, straightening. We've received a distress signal from New Haven Colony. I'm following standard human emergency procedures, which were superseded by Concord protocols when your species joined our alliance. Thrix reminded her, his voice gentle but firm. All potential incidents must be verified by a Concord observer before military mobilization can be authorized. With respect, Ambassador, people may be dying while we debate protocol. Thrix's expression shifted in the subtle way of his species, what humans had learned to interpret as polite condescension. Commander Vega, your species' tendency toward immediate, often violent response is precisely why these protocols exist. How many humans would die in an unnecessary military action based on what could be a simple communications error? And how many will die while we wait for bureaucratic approval? Ilara countered. The ambassador sighed. I have sent notification to the regional committee. They will dispatch an observation team to investigate. In the meantime, I must insist you resign your unauthorized communication to Earth. Ilara held Thrix's gaze. Too late. The message is sent. The ambassador's scales darkened slightly. Anger, or perhaps fear. This will have consequences, Commander. So we're doing nothing, she replied. 3 hours later, the observation team from the regional committee arrived. A single vessel with 4 diplomats and 2 security officers. No military support, no medical personnel. Ilara watched from the command center as they departed for New Haven, 17 light-years distant. They're not treating this as a genuine emergency, she muttered. The Concorde hasn't faced a significant military threat in over 3 centuries, Nash said. They've forgotten what urgency looks like. Ilara's personal communicator vibrated against her wrist. A message, encrypted, coming through channels that officially didn't exist. She excused herself and retreated to her private quarters to read it. The message was brief. Signal received. Contingency Aurora activated. Maintain position. Wait for the dark stars. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. Contingency Aurora, a protocol developed in secret against Concorde regulations for exactly this scenario. A response plan created by military leaders who, like Ilara herself, never fully trusted the Concorde's peaceful assurances. She returned to the command center to find Ambassador Thrix engaged in heated discussion with Lieutenant Keller. Is there a problem, Ambassador? She asked. Several, in fact, Thrix replied. We've lost contact with the observation vessel, and now we're detecting unusual energy signatures from within Concorde space, possible unauthorized ship movements. What kind of ships? Ilara asked, though she already suspected the answer. Unknown, Keller reported. They're using stealth technology that shouldn't exist according to Concorde records. Ambassador Thrix's scales had paled to an ashy gray. Commander Vega, if human military vessels are mobilizing without authorization, it constitutes a breach of the membership treaty. The consequences would be severe. I understand, Ambassador, Ilara said calmly. But perhaps we should focus on the more immediate concern, the fate of New Haven Colony and the observation team. Before Thrix could respond, Ensign Park called out, Commander, multiple signals coming in, all human emergency frequencies, all colonies in Sector 7. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Not one colony, but all 5 human settlements in the sector sending emergency signals simultaneously. This is no communication error, Ilara said quietly. This is a coordinated attack. Ambassador Thrix moved to a console, his fingers flying across the alien interface. I'm contacting the High Council directly. This matter now exceeds regional authority. It's too late for that, Ilara said, watching as new data appeared on the main view screen. Look. The sensor display showed energy signatures emerging from hiding places throughout human space, ships powering up engines that had been dormant but not decommissioned as the Concorde believed. Earth's hidden fleet, maintained in secret against the day the Concorde failed to protect human colonies. What have you done? Thrix whispered. We've done what every species in this galaxy would do, Ilara answered. We've prepared to defend our own. A new communication came through, broadcast on all frequencies, meant to be heard by everyone. The face of Admiral Helena Chen, Earth's highest military commander, appeared on screens throughout the station. Attention all Concorde representatives and officials. This is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command. Human colonies are under attack by an unknown hostile force. The Concorde has failed in its obligation to protect member worlds. Therefore, in accordance with the Natural Rights Clause of our membership treaty, Earth is activating its self-defense forces. Ambassador Thrix turned to Ilara, his expression unreadable. Your species concealed military capabilities from the Concord. This is unprecedented. No, Ilara corrected him. It's just history repeating itself. Humans have always prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. As if to punctuate her words, the sensors detected new signatures, hundreds of them, emerging from stealth throughout Concord space. Ships of Earth design, armed and moving with purpose. The Deathworlders are coming, Nash whispered, a hint of pride in his voice. Ambassador Thrix stared at the display, watching as Earth's hidden fleet converged on the colonies in distress. You never trusted us, he said quietly. Trust is earned, Ilara replied, not granted by treaty. As they watched, the first images from New Haven began to reach them. The colony in ruins, strange ships of unknown design hovering over the destruction. And moving toward them, silent and determined, humanity's response. The Concord was about to learn why creatures from a death world never truly forget how to fight. The Deathworlders respond. Admiral James Korikov stood on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable, watching as his fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the New Haven system. The ship had once been a civilian colony transport, at least on paper. In reality, it had been designed with warfare in mind, its passenger compartments easily converted to house weapon systems and additional armor. All ships accounted for, Admiral, reported Commander Sarah Wilson, his executive officer, 37 vessels, combat ready. James nodded. Deploy reconnaissance drones. I want eyes on New Haven before we commit. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, despite the fact that most had never participated in actual combat. Earth's military had been officially downsized when humanity joined the Concord, but the training had never stopped, just moved underground, conducted in simulators and remote facilities, far from Concord observers. Sir, the sensor officer called out, drones are sending back preliminary data. It's not good. The main view screen filled with images of New Haven. The once thriving colony was in ruins, buildings reduced to rubble, fields burning. Strange ships hovered above the devastation. Sleek, curved vessels that matched no known design in the Concord database. Life signs? James asked, his voice tight. Scattered groups of survivors, the officer replied, mostly concentrated in the mountain caves to the north. But there's something else. The attackers are methodical. They're not just destroying. They're taking samples, conducting experiments. Commander Wilson frowned. What kind of experiments? Biological, from what we can determine. They seem particularly interested in human physiology. James felt a cold anger settle in his chest. He had opposed joining the Concord from the beginning, arguing that humanity would be better served by forming its own alliances rather than submitting to an organization that viewed them with suspicion and fear. Now those misgivings had been proven justified. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Concord High Council, the communications officer announced. Put it through, James ordered. The face of High Counselor Zivix appeared on screen. And Elbaxi, one of the founding species of the Concord. Like all his kind, he appeared frail by human standards, with delicate features and large, sensitive eyes adapted to a world of perpetual twilight. Admiral Korikov, Zivix began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into smooth, accentless English. You are in violation of Concord military protocols. Your fleet must stand down immediately. James kept his expression neutral. With respect, Counselor, my fleet is responding to an attack on human colonies, an attack your observation team confirmed before they too were destroyed. We understand your concern, Zivix replied. But the Concord must handle this through proper diplomatic channels. These unknown vessels may be attempting peaceful contact. Peaceful, James interrupted, gesturing toward the images of devastation. They've destroyed 5 colonies and are conducting biological experiments on survivors. This isn't diplomacy, Counselor. It's an invasion. Nevertheless, unauthorized military action could escalate. The time for caution has passed. James cut in. My fleet will engage the hostile forces and evacuate survivors. If the Concord wishes to assist, we welcome the help. If not, stay out of our way. He signaled to cut the transmission before Zivix could respond. Commander Wilson raised an eyebrow. That was direct, sir. Diplomacy has failed these colonists, James replied grimly. Now they need soldiers. The communications officer spoke up again. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the hostile vessels. Let's hear what they have to say, James ordered. The screen flickered, revealing a creature unlike any documented in Concord records. It had a chitinous exoskeleton, multiple compound eyes, and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. Human vessels, the translation came through. Your presence is unnecessary. We are conducting scientific research. The specimens on this world are being utilized for the advancement of knowledge. Specimens, James repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Those are our people. Lesser beings have no rights under Mrakori law, the creature responded. Depart immediately or be included in our studies. The transmission ended abruptly. James turned to his tactical officer. Battle formations. Cruisers to form a perimeter around the colony. Frigates to target the Mrakori research vessels. Medical ships to prepare for evacuation operations. As the fleet moved into position, James opened a channel to all ships. All personnel, this is Admiral Korikov. Today we face an enemy that views our people as specimens for experimentation. They believe that because we come from a world they would consider hostile and dangerous, we are somehow lesser beings. He paused, looking at the images of New Haven's destruction. It's time to show them why creatures from a death world should be feared, not underestimated. We fight not for conquest or glory, but for the most basic right of all sentient beings, the right to exist free from predation. Commence operations. The human fleet moved with precision, born of years of secret training. Frigates engaged the Mrakori vessels, while smaller, faster ships darted between them, drawing fire and creating openings. On the ground, special forces teams deployed to locate and protect survivors. The Mrakori, despite their technological advantages, seemed unprepared for the ferocity and coordination of the human counterattack. Their ships, while advanced, were designed for research and specimen collection, not warfare. They had expected compliance, not resistance. From his command chair, James watched as the tide of battle quickly turned in humanity's favor. The Mrakori vessels began to retreat, abandoning their ground forces. Sir, Commander Wilson reported, we've secured the colony perimeter. Evacuation teams are reporting the first survivors aboard medical ships. James nodded, but his attention was drawn to another alert. What's that? Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, the sensor officer reported. Concord signatures, a lot of them. A fleet of Concord vessels appeared at the edge of the system, far more than should have been available on such short notice. They're hailing us, the communications officer said. The face of Admiral Theron, the Concord's senior military commander, appeared on screen. The Valorian officer's fur was standing on end, a sign of agitation in his species. Admiral Korikov. Theron began. The High Council has authorized my fleet to assist in the defense of New Haven Colony. Please coordinate your operations with ours. James couldn't hide his surprise. That's a remarkably fast response from a council that was advocating diplomacy less than an hour ago. Theron's expression shifted in what humans had learned was the Valorian equivalent of a grim smile. Let's just say that while the council was deliberating, some of us were already preparing. Not all Concord species are as trusting as the council wishes to appear. Understanding dawned on James. You knew. We suspected, Theron corrected. The Mrakori were expelled from Concord space centuries ago for ethical violations. There were rumors they had returned, but without proof, the council wouldn't act. And now you have your proof, James said, gesturing to the devastation below. Yes, Theron agreed solemnly, and perhaps something more valuable. a reminder that sometimes the aggressive instincts of Deathworlders serve a purpose in this galaxy. The combined human and Concord fleets made short work of the remaining Murakori forces. Within hours, evacuation operations were underway, bringing survivors to safety while medical teams treated the wounded. On the surface of New Haven, James walked through the ruins of what had once been the colony's main settlement. Buildings lay in rubble around him, the air thick with smoke and dust. But amid the devastation, he saw colonists emerging from hiding, greeting rescue teams with tears of relief. A Concord diplomatic shuttle landed nearby, and Ambassador Thrix emerged, accompanied by several aides. The lengthy diplomat looked distinctly uncomfortable in the higher gravity of the colony world, but he moved with determination toward James. "Admiral Korikov," Thrix began, his voice subdued. "The High Council has asked me to convey their reconsideration of certain policies regarding human military capabilities." James raised an eyebrow. "That sounds suspiciously like an apology, Ambassador." "Let us call it an acknowledgement," Thrix replied carefully. "The Concord was founded on principles of peaceful cooperation, but we have perhaps become complacent in our security. Peace works only when everyone desires it," James said, watching as rescue teams helped injured colonists into medical transports. Thrix nodded slowly, "A lesson we have relearned today at great cost." He hesitated before continuing. "The Council has also voted to revise the classification of Earth." "Oh, yes. While it remains a death world by our environmental standards, we now recognize that such worlds produce not merely dangerous species, but necessary ones." James looked up at the sky where human and Concord ships now worked together. "Will the Council also acknowledge our right to maintain our own defense forces?" "That debate continues," Thrix admitted. "But I believe the events here have shifted the balance of opinion significantly." As the ambassador departed, Commander Wilson approached. "Sir, all survivors have been accounted for. We're ready to begin reconstruction efforts." James nodded. "Coordinate with the Concord ships. I want this colony rebuilt better than before. And this time, with proper defenses." Wilson smiled slightly. "Already in progress, sir. Apparently, Admiral Theron has authorized the deployment of several Concord defense platforms." He seemed quite insistent. "Interesting," James mused. "It seems we may have more allies within the Concord than we realized." As night fell over New Haven, emergency lights illuminated work crews of humans and Concord species laboring side by side to clear rubble and establish temporary shelters. From orbit, the combined fleet stood watch, a visible reminder that sometimes peace required the credible threat of force. In the command center of the temporary headquarters, James received a transmission from Earth. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression solemn but satisfied. "Congratulations, Admiral," she said. "New Haven is secure, and the Murakori have retreated from Concord space." "Thank you, Admiral," James replied. "But I suspect our victory has changed more than just this battlefield." Chen nodded. "The Concord is already revising its defense policies. They've invited Earth to participate in the formation of a new rapid response force, one that would include significant human leadership." James couldn't help but smile. "So it took an invasion for them to recognize what we've been saying all along, that sometimes the galaxy needs Deathworlders." "Precisely," Chen agreed. As one Concord diplomat put it, "In a garden of peace, it helps to have a guardian with teeth." As the transmission ended, James looked out over the colony where humans worked through the night, rebuilding what had been destroyed. The lessons of Earth, of survival against all odds, of never surrendering even when outnumbered. These were the gifts humanity brought to the stars. Gifts that had been dismissed as primitive and dangerous until they became necessary. The Deathworlders had responded to the call, and in doing so, had changed their place in the galaxy forever.